So today we're going to be talking about how to format a KDP coloring book like this. So you'll know how to upload your book for sale on Amazon KDP's platform without running into any error messages. So first we're going to do a quick Google search for KDP interior margins. And then that's going to bring us to the help section that talks about trim size, bleed, and margins. But we're going to be scrolling down and we're going to start by looking at some of the trim specifications. So these are some of the most popular trim sizes that people publish books on KDP. Since we're talking about coloring books, the most popular trim size for coloring books is usually going to be 8.5 by 11. We're just going to scroll further down the page, and then you notice where it starts talking about bleed versus no bleed. Bleed simply means that when you're creating your coloring book pages, if you want them to extend to the edges of the page like this book does, then this is called bleed, because think of it like blood where it just drips, right? So it goes to the edge. It goes all the way to the edge. So that's what bleed is versus no bleed, where you have like a border within the middle of the page and then you have white space around the page. See, this page is no bleed because it has white space around it, while the other page is considered bleed because it has no white space around it. Okay, so that's the difference between bleed and no bleed in your coloring books. So this is basically just explaining that. Then it goes on to give you examples of page sizes with and without bleed. So for example, like I said, for coloring books, which we're going to be using the standard of 8.5 by 11, that is the size that I make all of my coloring books. When you have no bleed, then you're just going to do a standard 8.5 by 11 when you're going to put in your custom dimensions inside of Canva. But when you're going to do bleed and extend the pages all the way to the edges of the book, you have to account for that extra space. So instead of putting 8.5 by 11, you would put 8.625 by 11.25 when you're going to do your custom design. All right, and the final section that we get to is considered the margins. And so the margins are what we're going to be focused on today, so that you can see how to create the book so that you don't get any errors when you go to upload the book in KDP. Now, if for some reason you do get an error when you upload your book, it's not the end of the world. Just know there is an easy fix for it, and there is something that you can do to eliminate those errors, okay? But we're going to go ahead and look down under the margin section. Most coloring books are going to be less than 150 pages. So this is the area that we're going to be focused on, because my coloring books are usually around 52 pages, and that's because it has to account for one blank page in between each of my coloring book pages. KDP actually counts the blank page as one of the pages. So really my images, I only include about 24 images with each book, but because KDP counts the blank pages that are included too, the book totals about 52 to 54 pages, all right? So for the page count, it's going to be between 24 and 150 pages. As you can see, the inside margins are going to need to be 0.375. And then if we are doing bleed for the outside margins, it will need to be at least 3.75 of an inch. All right, so I know this just sounds like a bunch of numbers. We're going to break it all down so you can see. We're going to go ahead and start creating a coloring book using Canva that has bleed. So let's scroll back up here. And remember, for 8.5 by 11, if we're doing with bleed, page size with bleed, then we need to make our coloring book interior 8.625 by 11.25. Okay, so from the home page of Canva, we're going to switch this to inches, and then we're going to do 8.625 by 11.25. And then we're going to go ahead and create our new design. This is going to give us our blank template to start our interior. So because we're doing with bleed, as you can see, the inside gutter margins for our book is going to need to be 0.375, and the outside gutter margins is going to need to be the same. So let's go ahead and set our margins in Canva. All right, so to set the margins, we're going to be using the rulers. If your screen looks like mine and you don't see any rulers, you would just simply go to File, and then you would go to View Settings, and then Show Rulers and Guides. And then now you'll notice that rulers are on the side and on the top. So we're going to start by dragging the ruler over to 0.375, or try to get it as close as we can. So we have it at 0.392, all right? And so now what we're going to do is click on Elements, and we're going to search for square. And we're just going to bring the square in, and we're going to go ahead and resize the square so that we can fit it inside of this purple line. All right, now we're going to resize it so that it fits perfect. Once it fits, we're going to duplicate this square, and then I'm going to bring it here. I'm going to duplicate it again. Then I'm going to bring it there, duplicate it again, and I'm going to bring it to the bottom. Now, all four sides are going to be exactly the same, which is what we're going to need for our margins. We're going to go back to shapes and get a square again. And now we're going to use this square. Let me make it a different color so we don't get confused. Now we're just going to use this square and bring it up to the top of each of those. And then you see how our margins are still outlined around the square. Now we're going to take and we're going to make a border for the square. So we're going to click here for the line, and this is going to give us a border around the square. Now we're going to go to the black area and we're going to make that transparent. So now we have a square. So we can remove all of these little bitty squares, and now we have our template. So this just means all of our everything that's important about our image is going to go in this square. Nothing that we want cut off is going to go out of this square. And then you would just duplicate that for each page until you get the number of pages that you need. You can even select all three and then keep duplicating the pages until you get the amount of pages. And then if you want to add your blank page in between each page, you can do it that way as well. So that'll be your coloring book page with the image, your blank page, your coloring book page with the image, your blank page, coloring book page, and so on. But now let's say you wanted to create a template without bleed because you don't want your pages to go to the edges of the book. So then you would just come back to the home page and you would start at 8.5 by 11 inches, and you're going to create your new design from there. But I have actually gone in and created a template for you so that you don't have to do it. And it is 52 pages. You can add more pages if you need to. You can even come in and, customize by inputting your title, your name here under the copyright page, as well as this book belongs to section. You can change the font if you wanted to do that, and just customize the template yourself. And then when you get to these pages, you would just come and upload the images that you have and then drag them in place. Just go to bookbaguniversity.com, and I'll also link everything below just so you'll have it, all right? I got you covered though. I hope this video was helpful for you, and if you like this type of content, then make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe so that I know to keep putting more content out like this. And until next time, bye-bye.